What is going on, guys? Today we are back with another one of those competitive analysis videos. It's actually been a while since I've done one of these. I guess if you disclude the team showcase one I did, and actually I don't even know if that video is going to be up by the time this one's up, but if it's not, at least you know what's to come. So anyway, yep, we have another competitive analysis video. This is going to be different than the usual ones I do, where it's like the whole Pokemon list, and then we talk about the Pokemon's purpose in the urself metagame, and that sort of thing. This is definitely going to be a little bit more similar to the video titled How to Deal with Stall in the urself metagame. So this is basically, I don't know what I'm going to actually title this, but let's just for now call it the most important things to keep in mind in a Pokemon battle. That's basically what this video is going to be about. Now, this can mean a tournament battle, a basic ladder battle. It really doesn't matter. It's basically just the things you need to know when you're going into your battle. Now, this isn't like a tournament thing where you have to I'm not going to be talking about you need to scout your opponent, know exactly what kind of Pokemon they're going to bring, note that down, counter team, but it's none of that. It's not preparing for a battle. It's when you send out your first Pokemon and it's a 6v6 level playing field, what you can do in that battle to up your chances of winning and basically win the battle. So let's just hop right into it. So one of the first things I want to talk about, and one of the big mistakes that a lot of people make, is they just don't think about lead matchup. Now, it's easy to kind of ignore that because you're just thinking, okay, I just send out whatever Pokemon I want. It's 6v6, it's level. I can always, outplay if it's bad, blah, 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 blah. It's all that. But the thing is, lead matchup is a very, very important part of the game, and it's especially important when you have a certain matchup like offense versus offense. Obviously, if it's something like stall versus stall, it really doesn't matter because you're just going to switch in your Chansey or your Sableye anyway, it's whatever. But in a thing like offense versus offense, or even like a bulkier team versus another bulkier team, it's going to be important to know what to lead off with, what's going to give me the biggest advantage, and that sort of thing. So let's break down this battle right here. This is between Raikou and Amphuga for SPL. This was actually week 9, so they're both in urself. Let's take a quick look at their teams. So as you can see here, Amphuga's team is basically a pretty offensive build, but it's more of a bulky-ish offense. You see he has some pivots in the form of Heatran, Landorus, and even though his Latias is Life Orb, it's still going to be able to sponge a lot of hits, and it's a really good water resist. So, his team is offense, but it's bulkier because he has the pivots. Raikou's team, on the other hand, is again offensive, but it's much, much frailer, and it's way more geared toward hyper offense, if anything. As you can see, he's very, very weak to Scarf Keldeo if his Latios dies and that kind of thing. He doesn't exactly have these same exact pivots that Amphuga has. The only real pivot Raikou has on here is the Landorus and I guess AV Bisharp. But so basically, as you can see from their teams, they're still both two very offensive teams. Amphuga's is just a little bit bulkier and that kind of thing. But let's talk about lead matchup because that's what the focus is right now. If you can look at Raikou's team, Raikou actually does not have a fairy resist. Now, this could have been kind of a mess up in his own team building, but you can see that he has no solid fairy resist. Maybe his mentality with this team is he can overpower the popular fairies like Clef, Guard, and Azu. Okay, that's probably what his mentality is. So it's fine. Let's just break it down. So Amphuga can see that as well. So he's thinking, maybe I can lead off with my Gardevoir and just net a free kill. But if Raikou were to lead off with something like Lopunny, the Gardevoir would get easily just killed by the combination of Fake Out in return. The thing is for Amphuga is he can still lead off with his Gardevoir, and if Raikou does decide to lead off with his Lopunny, Amphuga instantly forces a 50-50. If Amphuga goes into his Landorus T on the Fake Out, he only takes 10%, Raikou takes the 17% from Helmet, and then if Raikou wants the Ice Punch to do a little bit more damage, Amphuga could end up Earthquaking, pretty much just kill Lopunny immediately, which is bad because then Raikou loses his main form of speed and his main thing to outspeed Weavile. Or if he wants to switch out, Amphuga might be able to even get up Rocks. And that would put Raikou automatically in a disadvantageous position. Because 1, his Lopunny took damage, and 2, Rocks are already up, and Amphuga is just, heavily, he's just at a heavy advantage. So, basically what goes on between these two is Amphuga decides, okay, I can lead off with the Gardevoir, and again, even if he leads off with his Lopunny, it's fine. Amphuga's also his mentality could have been that Raikou might want to even lead off with his Keldeo. Now, the reason Raikou could have led off with his Keldeo is it beats the lead of Landorus T. Say Amphuga wanted to get up Rocks ASAP. Keldeo, Specs Keldeo kind of just puts that at bay. On top of that, it can scare out a possible Weavile lead or Heatran and that kind of thing. And if Amphuga wants to lead off with Latias for some reason, Raikou knows it's not a big deal because he can always go into his AV Bisharp and, just Pursuit Trap that thing and that kind of thing. So that's both of their mentalities. So Raikou's actually going to end up trying to predict Amphuga to lead off with Landorus T, as Amphuga's going to lead off with Gardevoir, because again, Amphuga knows it's fine. If he leads off with a Lopunny, yes, I'm going to have to switch, but I'm going to be doing damage to him. I'm going to get the rocks up, I'm going to have an advantage, and Amphuga actually ends up getting that right. Because Raikou isn't going to lead off with Lopunny, he's actually going to lead off with Keldeo, trying to get his own lead initiative matchup. No, it's not lead initiative, it's lead matchup initiative. So Amphuga comes out on top here, And basically, Riku has to Hydro Pump turn 1 and sack his Gardevoir, because the only things he can go into to take a Hyper Voice are Bisharp, his AV Bisharp, which is just going to get 2-hit KO'd and can't kill in return, and Landorus T, which is slower and gets 2-hit KO'd. So he basically just sacks his Keldeo right here to Hyper Voice, and basically now on Fuga, it's a lot easier for him to just break holes with Weavile, because one of the faster things on Riku's team pretty much just take a heavy hit and is just done. So Amfuga already has initiative 6-5. On the next turn, Riku's going to bring in his Lopunny now. Amfuga actually hard switches into his Keldeo and takes 60% from return. Okay, that play isn't that bad. He predicted the Ice Punch and his Keldeo with Scarf. He predicted the Ice Punch because maybe Riku would just go for that and, try to KO Landorus, so Amfuga can't get extra helmet damage or, what's the word? Rocks up for free. So I do understand Amfuga's play. Obviously, yes, he gets punished for it heavily, and it was kind of like a crazy play to make, but I do understand where he's coming from. Anyway, now Amfuga has this out. He can just easily... Riku already lost one of his great water resists. So, he just scalds on the Latios. It does 23, and all of Amfuga's other moves just do much more. If he wants the Icy Wind or Secret Sword, those are going to be doing a lot. Icy Wind might even 2 a KO at this range. And Amfuga has pivots in the back in terms of Heatran and Gardevoir. He can even sack Gardevoir and then force the Pursuit. Because if he forces the Pursuit on Latias, then Riku actually just loses to the move Hydro Pump, providing it hits. So Amfuga actually ends up going to his Gardevoir, knowing that if he wants to double predicting the Heatran, this is still a fine sack, and if he just kills this thing off, well, now he can go into his Weavile and, just get it started. So he's going to go right into Weavile, and by turn 6, Riku has already lost 2 Pokemon, and his 2 main water resists are out of the game. And at this point, the game is very, very heavily in Amfuga's favor, because that turn 1 put him in such a high advantageous position to where Riku literally could not recover. This entire game is an extremely easy win from Amfuga. I'm just going to spoil it. He does win. And at no point in this game at all is Riku ever in, what's the best way to describe it? He never has the advantage. He's always playing from the back, but because Amfuga got the lead matchup right, he pretty much had this very, very easily. He just had to play smart. He just had to play patiently, and he beat him quite easily. Amfuga is just going to, make these plays, blah, 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 brings in Keldeo finally and just ends the game. Goes for the knockoff here, done. So that's basically what happened. He got the lead matchup correct. He got the initiative to start off the battle, and that was basically it for Riku. I understand Riku's mentality for sure leading off with the Keldeo, but even if he let off with Lopunny, I don't think he lost that much. Because he could obviously just go into... If he let off with Landorus, if Amfuga let off with Landorus, he can just go back into his own Landorus, get up rocks, and that kind of thing. But he had to end up sacking to the Fairy type turn 1, and that ended up hurting him a lot. So with that, let's just move on to the next thing. One of the biggest things you need to keep in mind in terms of whatever your battle is what people call the win condition, and that phrase is kind of thrown around a lot. It's also thrown around a lot with risk versus reward and that kind of thing, and I'll actually talk about risk versus reward after this, but let's talk about win conditions. So when people say win conditions, it's usually 1, 2, I'd say about 3 Pokemon on your team that are going to do a lot of work versus your opponent. It's very, very rare that in your battle, all 6 of your Pokemon will be completely instrumental in beating your opponent. It's very rare that all 6 of them will have some big job they need to do. Okay, it's called a 6 Pokemon team because some will be useful, some won't be, and you're just trying to cover everything with those 6. But most of the time, no, not all 6 are going to be needed. So let's look for examples. So here's a battle I had versus Frizzy for SPL week 5. Now, if you're looking at my team, I have an offense team. Frizzy has a semi-stall team. So basically, what we can instantly see from this is Hippowdon is useless versus Frizzy. He has a Sableye, a Gastro, a Clef, and a Breloom, even a Torn. What is this doing? Literally, it can't even get up rocks because Frizzy has a Sableye. So I can see right here that this is just done. It's dead weight, nothing. I look at my drill and I see, wow, Frizzy is extremely weak to Life Orb Excadrill. As we can see, it can almost kill every it can almost 2 a KO every Pokemon. Actually, it can 2 a KO every Pokemon. And even Oko's Clefable and Heatran with Iron Head and Earthquake respectively, and once Sand goes up, it's also faster than Torn, so I can just Rock Slide that thing out of the way. On top of that, it provides spin support for me, and I realize that if he ever is able to get up rocks, I can spin for my next biggest threat, Charizard Y. Look at Frizzy's team and look at Charizard Y. Absolute destruction. Sableye is walled, destroyed. Breloom, destroyed. Clef can T-Wave, but it cannot switch in. Gastrodon, destroyed. Heatran can take 1 Focus Blast. Actually, Heatran can take 1,000 Focus Blasts, because you know that move won't hit. But jokes aside, Heatran cannot switch into Focus Blast. Only thing it can really do is threaten with a Toxic. Tornadus T can't even kill with Hurricane. And again, Hurricane's not even going to hit in the Sun to begin with. So that's a losing battle. I can see that my Latios isn't going to be too useful at all versus Frizzy, because he has Heatran and Clefable. Not to mention, Torn can knock me off, and Sableye can actually take 2 hits. Also has knockoff and that kind of thing to get rid of my Life Orb and just kill me in general. Ferrothorn, extremely useless when he has a Sableye, and Weavile, which is just Life Orb, so it actually is walled by Sableye, Clefable, and Gastro. By walled, I mean it just can't 2-hit KO them, so it's just going to get recover stalled. So that's basically my mentality was, I'm basically playing a 2 versus 6 game. Now, obviously, I'm not really playing a 2 versus 6 game. I do have 4 other Pokemon that might do something in this battle, but I realized here that if I somehow lose my Charizard Y and I lose my Excadrill, I've lost. There's nothing I can do to break his team, and I will lose this game 100%. So that my mentality was, okay, these are my win conditions. Now, the second part to this is, just because you've done your win conditions and you've realized what you need to do to win, doesn't mean you just start playing the battle. This is true for pretty much any competitive thing, sports, the esports in general, and I'm not really comparing them that much because, let's be honest, Pokemon, while it is a competitive thing, I'm just going to say a Pokemon is not as hard as almost any other competitive game or esports or whatever. It's not as hard. But it's still the same thing. It happens in sports and all that. Once you hit a certain level or you're at the equal level to your opponent, you're no longer really playing the game, but you're playing the player. You need to understand it's not just you playing a team. You're playing a human being on the other end of that game. And you need to start playing the human. And that's like a big deal. So you can see in the battle, what they're doing, how they're playing, how you should work around that, and that sort of thing. So basically the first thing I always do in terms of tournament is I find my win condition, and then I quickly scan over their team and see, okay, what are they going to do? You think Frizzy didn't know at team matchup that he's going to get absolutely rocked by Driller and Zardwai? He definitely knew. So he must have been thinking, okay, how should I play around this? Obviously, this is just a kind of a nuisance for me to deal with. And that kind of thing. But I realized from Frizzy's end, he's probably going to be going through the mentality of, okay, maybe I should play smart with my Tornadus T. It seems like he doesn't have any good flying resist, that kind of thing. If I knock off Hippo, I can hit that thing hard with Hurricanes. His mentality also is, okay, his Charizard Y is obviously a big threat, but if I get Clefable in at 100% on it, I can always throw out a T-Wave. He's probably thinking, okay, Heatran can deal with Latios, so if I get up rocks ASAP, that'll help me. Sableye can knock off all the items by also throwing Wisp out, and his mentality is probably, I also have to keep those rocks up for Zard Y. So that's what he's thinking about. I knew in his head he was definitely going to want to keep the Heatran, Clef, and Sableye alive the most. I realized those three were going to be the absolutely most instrumental versus my team. Even if they don't do that much, I knew Sableye and Clef were going to be the two killers. So pretty much I went into mine knowing that, okay, I need to watch out for those three Pokemon because that's what Frizzy's going to try to play the best around with. So let's just hop right into the battle. I lead off with Drill against Breloom. Now this, it might seem weird to lead off with Drill. I mean, people really don't lead Drill, but my mentality was Frizzy's going to expect me to lead off with my Charizard Y, so he's going to lead off with his Heatran to get the Insta-Toxic off, or he's going to lead off with Clefable to get off the Insta-T-Wave. So my mentality was this covers both options, and then I can just get off a heavy hit. Instead, Frizzy leads off with his Breloom, which we're actually going to find out is Scarf Breloom. I knew it was something like that, or it was Toxic Orb, just because there's no reason for him to have some weird Life Orb Technician Breloom on Semi-Stall. So for that, I'm going to switch out immediately into my Ferrothorn, because I'm like, first of all, Ferrothorn's near useless, as we talked about earlier. If he has a Sableye, what is Ferrothorn doing? Absolutely zero. As he actually ends up going for a Spore, so I was like, this is awesome. Because now I know he can't go for any one move that kills me, and even then, he didn't bring in his Sableye, so I'm going to get up a Spike. And as soon as I realized that in this battle, I remember getting really excited during this game because I was like, oh my god, I'm going to get up a Spike. Because I have no business getting up hazards versus his team anyway. Both of my hazard setters get completely shut down by Sableye, but because the lead matchup actually ended up kind of working for me with my switch to Ferrothorn, I'm able to get up a Spike, which is going to help a lot because 5 of his Pokemon are grounded and he has no Spike resist. So he ends up going for a Spore. We see no Toxic Orb here, which led me to believe he's Scarf, and 3 turns later he's going to confirm that. But anyway, I'm able to get up the Spike here as he goes into Heatran. Now, here I switch into my Hippowdon as he goes for his rocks. Here I was like, I don't even care, dude. Like, you want a Lava Plume burn me? Go ahead. I need to get these rocks up because, again, I was like, wow, he's giving me the opportunity to get up another layer of hazards against a team that I shouldn't be able to get hazards with. So I'm really acting on this battle like, okay, this is going to help my win cons like anything. If I can get up rocks for Tornadus T to always take damage, I was like, this is going to be amazing. My Drill is actually going to destroy him as well as Charizard Y. He's not even going to be able to switch in that Heatran anymore because it's going to be taken 25% each time. So he taunts me, that kind of thing. Here I actually double out. I'm 100% sure he's either going to go into Gastrodon or Breloom, so I double out here into my Latios, and that actually works out for me. But since we see Sand hit him first, I'm like, okay, he's Scarf 100%. I switch right out of there, and I go into my Ferrothorn. And then I'm like, yes, Sableye still has not come in. I'm going to get up that Spike, and we're just going to be able to really beef up my win conditions and that kind of thing. So we get up the second Spike as he brings in the Heatran, and I'm like, you know what, we're just going to go right back into Hippo. Whatever, if I get burned, forget it. What do I really need this for? I don't. Why would I keep my Hippo so safe? Like, I could go into Latios and that kind of thing, but Latios is actually going to do more than Hippo does in this game. I don't have to keep all 6 of my Pokemon. I know I don't need this. And you're going to see that shown even more in the battle because he did just crit me there with Lava Plume, so it's like, okay, if he stays in here and Lava Plumes for some reason, he is going to 2-KO me. But instead, I just go right for the rocks. Like, again, if he Lava Plume and 2-KO'd me, it happens. I don't need this, though. And I end up getting rocks and 2 layers of spikes up versus Frizzy. Like, it's absolutely fantastic. Like, I shouldn't have gotten any of these layers up, and now it just becomes real easy. So look, I even Whirlwind there. Again, don't need to waste time recovering. What do I need a bulky Hippowdon for? So we can still lose to Clefable and Gastro and literally everything else? No reason. So I just Whirlwind myself out, and I actually end up bringing in Zard, which is fine. I'm just going to go for the Roost here as he foul plays and that kind of thing. Now, I end up roosting again as he brings the Heatran. Now here, I switch out. Now look, I could easily Focus Blast the Heatran, but it doesn't kill at 78 if he's a fully split F set. So like, what if I miss? If it doesn't kill, what if he goes for a Toxic? Now I just put one of my 2 win conditions. Again, Drill, Zardwide. Those were the 2 win conditions. I literally let one of those get damaged and put on a timer for no actual reason. Now he can play around with his combination of Clef, Torn, and Clef, Torn, and Heatran, and if I lose my Zard, that's one of my biggest breakers just out the way, and that's just stupidity. Why would I have to risk that? But if I switch out into Latios, or I switch out in general and I scare off the Heatran, well, now if I get the Zard back in, Heatran's going to come in at 56%, I think, right? 56%, and wait, is it? Wait, what? No, it comes at 50, whatever, dude. It comes out like 51 or something, I don't know. Yeah, but sorry about that. It comes in at like 50-ish%, and then I'm able to just kill him with Focus Blast for sure, because then it's a 100% kill rate. So I'm going to go into Latios there, because why not play it safe? Latios, again, it's not that good of a Pokemon versus his team. He has the Torn, he has the Tran, he has the Clefable, it's whatever. He actually ends up doubling into his Clefable, which I assume what he did was predict the Focus Blast, and then he wanted to Thunder Wave in the following turn to get rid of me. But that didn't actually end up working. Now here, I actually go into my Hippowdon. It's a well-known fact that Excadrill is one of the biggest offensive checks to Clefable. But why would I risk that? What if for some reason Frizzy was Calm Mind, Flamethrower, Moonblast, Soft Boiled, which is still a decently common set? If I went into my Excadrill there, and what if I went into my Excadrill there and he just did 50% to me? Well, then basically I just let one of my win conditions take half for no actual reason, and then I'm going to have a much, much harder time sweeping because my Life Orb turns are just decreased by half. I literally lose 5 turns of attacking because I don't want Drill to take hits to begin with. I do not need to do that, so I went in the Hippowdon. Just playing it safe is the best play. But Frizzy knows I'm either going to go into that or Driller, so he makes the good play of going into his Breloom. And at this point, I think I just actually end up staying in here because, again, why would I go into my Latios or whatever trying to catch the thing? Or like, I just don't have to. Useless Pokemon here. I might as well just, do what I can. So he actually ends up force palming, predicting my Ferrothorn, but it helps me out anyway. He goes into Torn, blah blah blah, EQ here. Hurricanes me, he gets the confusion, but I Whirlwind him out. I go into my Latios on the Gastro as he doubles out again into his Torn. I actually end up switching into Weavile here because I predicted the knockoff, but he ends up going for a Hurricane and missing. He's the bulkier spread on his Torn, so what was I gonna say? He actually doesn't kill me with Hurricane here. It still sucks because it would have done like 60% Hurricane. It's still strong, but I mean it's like a Focus Blast, so he's gonna miss. Whatever. It's hacks. It's Pokemon. Sorry about that. It is what it is. So at this point here, I end up just going for the Icicle Crash, I believe, as he brings in his Clefable. I end up missing myself as well, so I can't force the recovery anymore. But again, I go into my Hippo because I'm like, wait, why risk a Drill? In any case, Hippowdon actually has enough Spadef to actually be able to take 2 Moonblasts, recover. I can do the whole Whirlwind thing again, but why would I risk my Excadrill on a possible Flamethrower? I can play this safe because I know exactly what my win conditions are. I don't have to go crazy with it. So he's going to switch out there and bring in his Breloom here again, I guess predicting this or whatever. But yeah, at this point, I'm just going to go back. I'm going to stay in as he Seed Bombs because I was like, again, I don't need this and I don't want to risk Ferrothorn as much as I want to risk Hippo. As he Seed Bombs, and that does absolutely nothing because Scarf Breloom is actually a horrible set. So I'm going to go back into Ferrothorn. He Seed Bombs, blah, 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 blah. I didn't want to risk crits because I don't really need to when I have this safety net. And now Frizzy's going to go into a Tornadus, and I'm like, wait, this is actually fantastic. Now look, it's very obvious he's going to go for the Fire move, Heat Wave, and I'm going to lose my Ferrothorn. But again, what do I really need this for when he has the Sableye and the Heatran? I'm like, okay, maybe I can Gyro Ball, get off damage, and then Pursuit Trap him, and that's exactly what happens. I Gyro, do the damage, he kills me off, I go into Weavile, I trap him, gone. And that's like the last thing faster than both my Zard and my Drill. I pretty much took out both forms of speed, being Scarf, Breloom, and Torn, and now I'm like, now these two are actually going to blow him away. So he goes into Clef, I switch out there, I finally go into Hippowdon again, because I'm like, okay, I still wall him, I can take 2. He ends up critting, actually no, he doesn't crit, he crits Moonblast later. Okay, so I'm rolling him out, I'm going to Latios, because again, that's the designated Gastro check. I think I recover here, yep. because I can just keep using my pivots. He actually ends up critting the Moonblast this time. Yeah, so he crits me here, so I'm like, damn it, there goes my Hippowdon. But I was like, okay, it's fine. He has no actual ground resist versus a Life Orb Excadrill, which is just, that's bad news. I'm going to Iron Head here because, again, I still don't know if he has the Fire-type move of Flamethrower, and we're not risking it here. So I go for the Iron Head. It's a pretty risk-free play. I take 10% as he stacks his Heatran, and now he's going to go into Sableye. Now, look, I could have gone into Zard here, expecting the Recover or Will-O-Wisp. It was more obvious that he would definitely go for the Recover, but what if for some reason he Foul Played? There's no reason to risk that, especially when Weavile is completely walled by his last 3 Pokemon. He can't 2-hit KO any Pokemon on this side, and they can all just recover on me, so I just sack it. Go for the Ice Cold Crash, I flinch him, then I missed this one. Now here I knew 100% he was going to recover, because he wouldn't just, I would die to Life Orb, and he wouldn't want to be at 50%. So here I could make the Charizard play. It was like no question, he would never attack here. But here I'm going to be able to bring this in. Again, I actually just Flamethrower here. Even though Foul Play only does 40%, what do I need a 60% Charizard instead of a 50% for? Why would I do that? Like, what if he gets crit, anything? I can just go for the Flamethrower, get him out the way, Foul Play. I'm not even going to Roost here. I'm just going to Flamethrower again, get him out the way. There's no reason for me to make that play. Because I can always spin later, once I kill the Ghost, and win with my Solar Beam from this. He goes into Clefable. Now here, you might think it's weird that I went into Latios instead of Excadrill. Because, you know, I mean, Latios instead of Weavile, because Weavile dies to hazards. But I wanted to literally cover every single option. And even my team was asking me after this, why'd you even make that play? And they were saying it's bad, but it's not, and I'll explain to you exactly why here. If I go into Weavile, but Frizzy predicts that and goes into Gastrodon, now what do? I cannot go into Zard Y, because, for one, it's going to die to hazards. Latios might not kill with Draco. That's not even a confirmed kill chance. I'm pretty sure it just doesn't kill. And, he can start cursing up on me, and then it's just getting really, really hard. I can't go into Driller because he actually ends up being max defense, and so if I spin so that my Zard can kill him, he can just Earthquake, knock out my Driller. So let's say that he did go into Gastrodon and I sack my Weavile. Well, then I'm forced to spin with Driller, or I'm forced to crit fish with Latios. Either one is still horrible for me. And then he kills my Driller, and then it's my Zard, and say he sacks the Gastrodon to a Solar Beam. So it's now Zard and Latios versus Clefable. He Thunder Waves on my Flamethrower from Zard, he Soft Boils, I get Paralysis on the Flamethrower, and now I've lost. He's just going to Calm Mind on me, and I've lost the game. Because Latios and Zard Y cannot be Clefable if Zard Y has been paralyzed. And that's a big deal. So I realized, okay, let me go into this. Now here I know 100% he's not going to, going to Gastrodon. That would just not make sense. So I said, okay, here's the turn I sack the Weavile. And it works out. Gone. I can go into Driller. I know here there's no way he has Flamethrower. He's already revealed all of his moves. Calm Mind, Moonblast, T-Wave, Soft Boil. I can just Earthquake here on the off chance he really wants to go into Gastro. He goes for that. I kill him with the next one. I spin here, blah, blah, blah. I went with my Zard Y. So this might have been a really long, explanation. Sorry about that, but I really just wanted to show you the whole win-con thing. I never had to risk my Zard or my Drill. They were going to be the most instrumental in this game. They actually ended up getting every single kill with the exception of Tornadus, which died to Weavile Pursuit, and Breloom, which ended killing itself all by itself. I didn't touch it once. It died to hazards plus sand damage. So basically that's what you need to understand. I need to keep my win conditions healthy. Frizzy also did the same thing. Sableye and Clefable were the last two. I said Sableye, Clefable, and Tran would be the last one standing. Tran was the third to die. And he kept Gastro because it had the, curse on it, so, it could work, that kind of thing. But he kept his win conditions, I kept my win conditions, and it ended up with mine winning because I just played them safe. So with that, let's move on to the next step. Okay, so something that everybody loves to talk about when it comes to competitive Pokemon is the whole aspect of risk versus reward, and when people say stuff like, every turn is a 50-50 and blah, 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 and all that, it's, okay. Basically, what you need to understand about risk and reward is when people say that, it has to do with prediction, and let's give an example first. Say if I make this certain move with my Pokemon, I will be in a very, very, very good position for the rest of the game. In fact, if I make this move, I have a 95% chance of winning the game. But what if my opponent makes another play and my prediction or whatever my play is doesn't end up working out, and then I put myself in the back and I'm in a disadvantageous position? Now you need to think, is it really worth it for me to make this play if it ends up costing me the game, if it doesn't work out? That's what risk versus reward is. You need to understand, is this play really worth making if it can just give me these horrible, a horrible backlash if it just doesn't work out? So basically what risk versus reward is it worth making this play? And you need to analyze what the pros and the cons are of every single play you go for in battle. Almost every single play of the battle, you need to understand what's going to help me if I go for this play, but what's going to not work if this doesn't end up working out. So a replay I have here that really shows the whole risk versus reward, and I guess in also a sense senseless prediction, if we want to call it that. I'll probably just put these two terms together and just call it like 2 points, because like they're similar, but they're also kind of not. But anyway, let's get into this. Cosine 180 versus Tasung. So this was for SPL week 3. Yeah. So they're both in ORSLU. Cosine has a pretty balanced team, honestly. Like I liked it a lot. It has the SERP, Talon, Scizor core. So it has the SERP, Talon, Starmie, Scizor. You know, Mr. Jambad. You know, this is Mr. Jambad wet dream right here. Even Hippowdon. So. But as you can see, these are all some great Pokemon. You know, very good bulky setup sweepers that can really just tear holes in the opponent's team. Tasung is running a more offensive team with a little twist. He actually has a Specs Kyurem Black, which is very, very interesting. Not something you would ever really see. I don't think I've ever seen anyone run it besides him. But it has a very good matchup versus Cosine's team. It can come on Hippo, kill it. It can 2-hit KO Clef. Draco Meteor comes very, very close to killing Talonflame, but it just barely misses out on it. But does that really matter? Because if he just gets up a little bit of damage on Talon, then it's going to get blown away. Serp, Walled, gets Ice Beam obliterated, Starmie, Draco Meteor, and Tasung even has the Tech HP Fire just for Scizor and Ferrothorn, so he can even OHKO that thing. So if you're looking at it, it looks like this is just going to be a Kyurem Black buffet. Tasung even has Volt Turn support from Manectric and Landorus T. So let's hop right into it. So Tasung actually ends up getting the lead matchup very, very well. I think Cosine was predicting the Kyurem Black lead, predicting Tasung to predict the Hippowdon lead, so he led off with Scizor. But Tasung reads right through that, leads right off with this, knowing that Cosine is going to lead off with something that doesn't give himself a bad lead matchup versus Kyurem Black. So he leads off with his Manectric, and that works out very well for him. Cosine's going to immediately, actually I think, Tasung immediately switches out thinking, okay, he's just going to go into Hippowdon, let me get that Kyurem Black in. So, you know, Tasung makes 2 great plays all of a sudden in one turn. Like, he predicts the lead matchup, and he's going to make the double. Instead, Cosine goes into his Clefable, knowing that even if he goes into Bisharp, he can always just counteract that thing with a switch to Hippo. Now, this is where, like, I guess the misplay of the battle comes in. And again, I'm not ripping on Tasung. He's a good friend of mine, blah, blah, blah. This is just an example of what I said, risk versus reward. Now, Tasung does not really need to stay in here. Ice Beam will not kill the Clefable. He might end up getting Moonblasted and take 60%, or he'll get Thunder Waved, and he'll just be put out of commission completely. But if he wants to switch into, say, his Klefki, he can start getting up the spikes, put out a Thunder Wave of his own. He can bring then in the Hippo. He can then actually bring in the Kyurem confidently on the Hippo, which is more or less likely what's going to come in on the Klefki, and then he can just throw out one of his hard-hitting special attacks. Instead, he actually goes for the HP Fire and does 30%. Now, he knows he didn't have to make this play. We know he didn't have to make this play. It is what it is. It's a done thing, whatever. He tried to catch the Scizor immediately. Now, he really didn't have to make that play right there. I think Cosine's mentality was, okay, even if he's like a Life Orb, Iron Head, or whatever, I just want damage on this thing. That way, you know, it's not a nuisance to like my Serp and my Talon and all of them later on in the game, which I can totally understand coming from Cosine's side. And he probably thought my Clefable's not even going to be doing much work when he has a Klefki and a Bisharp anyway. But Tasung HP fires that, so Tasung played the first turn and the lead matchup very well, put himself in a really good advantageous position. But then he takes the Moonblast, takes 60%. Cosine even knows it's Specs, so now he's going to be able to bring in his Hippowdon, and he's going to be able to get up the rocks the next turn. So Tasung took his lead and pretty much just kind of dropped it like that. Not only is his set completely on blast now, it's very obviously Specs, but he gave his opponent free rocks, and his win con took 40%, when it would have been able to do a lot of work. Even as it's not even SD Bisharp, it's actually Pursuit Sharp, so it can't even do much work either. And Tasung actually ends up losing this game, unfortunately, because then Cosine knows he knows what's up. He knows the trick of the set, and then it's just very, very easy to play around, and he ends up winning. So Tasung, like, again, I'm not ripping on him. That's my dude. Like, it's just an unfortunate situation where he didn't really assess risk versus reward as well as he could have, and he ends up losing pretty much his best Pokemon to deal with Cosine's team like that. And then Cosine's very easily able to just, clean out the game from there. I believe he ends up winning with his Calm Mind Clefable. But yeah, let's just move on to the last and final step of the video. Okay, so the last step we want to talk about is looking ahead in the battle. So this can kind of, this can range. Like, when you're in your battle, you might be thinking, 2 or 3 turns ahead of what's going to happen. You could be thinking 7 turns ahead. You could be Mr. Jambad, and you could be thinking about turn 43 when it's actually turn 3. But who knows, looking ahead in your battle is pretty much a key thing, and pretty much everyone thinks about it. You need to think, okay, if I make this play, what's going to happen in 2 plays if I set up with my Bisharp? You need to think, okay, but if I do Draco Meteor with my Latios, then he can go into his Bisharp and set up, and then am I screwed? You need to think, Like, what are it goes back to the pros and cons of your plays, because you need to think, okay, if I do this play now, in a couple of turns, I might actually just end up losing, or if I make this play now, in a couple of turns, I might have my win condition paved for me immediately. So let's get into this replay I have right here of me versus ABR for SPL. This is also week 3, like the cosine to sun game. So basically, I can see from my perspective. Actually, let me switch the sides. I know people were asking for that, for me to be on the left side or whatever. So anyway, basically what I can realize is if I trap ABR's Magnezone, it looks like Pinsir can actually destroy him, because I'm a close combat Pinsir too for the T-Tar and the Drill. So I was like, okay, that's looking pretty good. I also have the Mag, which is just amazing, and so I was like, okay, these are going to be my 2 most important Pokemon, basically, to deal with his team. Even on top of that, it looks like Specs Magnezone on its own is actually kind of a threat. So that was basically my win condition at that point, in a sense, and looking ahead in the battle, I needed to realize, okay, what turns am I going to be able to bring these 2 threats in and just, make gains off that. So ABR's team is a little bit bulkier. He doesn't exactly have a hard hitter besides Specs Keldeo, but he relies on that plus Spikes plus Calm Mind Clefable to pretty much do his breaking, in a sense. But let's just skip through this battle real quick to like a relevant turn. Okay, so I actually kind of skipped ahead like a lot. As you can see, it's 4 Pokemon to 5 Pokemon, but this is basically when we can start seeing the whole looking ahead in the battle. Because up until this point, from both sides, we were kind of just feeling out I guess, each other as in terms of opponents, and seeing like, okay, what can we do to kind of get the initiative. We both knew from the beginning that I was going to try to use Pinsir to destroy him, and he was going to try to use Drill to destroy me, plus Spikes. We both knew that was basically what was going on here. On top of that, Specs Keldeo is also a pretty big threat to my team, but at this point, I think his Specs Keldeo at like 10% in burn or something. It's at like 15% in burn, and there's rocks up, so if it comes in and kills something, it's gonna die. It only gets 1 kill max. So basically, let's just hop right into it. At this point, you're probably looking at the battle and you're thinking, okay, it's looking like the biggest threat to ABR's team is definitely the combo of Pinsir plus Zone. So let's skip ahead a little bit, going to Landers there, U-turn out on the Clefable, kill him off a return, and again, it was 4-5, and now it's gonna be 4-4 as I kill this off as he goes back into his Skarm. Here's what you need to understand. It might look like Pinsir's the biggest threat, but Landers T is on par with Pinsir in terms of how annoying it is to ABR. Now, you might be thinking, how is that even possible? It's a defensive Landers T. But Landers T U-turns on Skarmory. If Skarmory gets below 25% or even like 28%, I think it's 28% and Stone Edge still kills. I could be wrong though, but say Skarm's at 25%, Stone Edge kills it. He cannot go into his Keldeo because that thing's at 15%. It just dies. Even if my attack somehow misses, it's going to die to rocks plus burn. So that's it. T-Tar is slower, dies. Excadrill can't kill, dies. So even though it's from the beginning, you would have never thought defensive Lando would do anything versus ABR. But around halfway through the battle, I was like, wait a minute, this is actually an important part of my team. I need to keep this thing healthy. So basically here, I CC, blah, 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 blah. I SD here because I was like, all right, I'm tired of this. As he ends up sacking the, what's it called, Tyranitar. And here I was like, okay, again, the Landers is going to be important. I need to keep Landers healthy because then I can deal with the Driller. If I U-turn on his switch to Skarm, bam. In comes Magnezone, trapped, done. Pinsir's going to just destroy him. So I was like, okay, this is looking good right now. So here I go back into Landers T. He just Iron Heads. Again, he goes into Keldeo because look, he can't even go into his Skarm there. He can't U-turn. I mean, because if I U-turn, which I am going to go for here because it's my 100% best play, we saw Iron Head do absolutely 0 damage. If I U-turn on the Skarm, he's going to get trapped by the Magnezone, done. Pinsir sweeps, done. Game's finished. So he has to sack the Keldeo here, dead. So now what was a 4 versus 5 is now actually a 4 versus 2. Because of the combination of defensive Landers luring in only... Because as soon as I killed off Latias, he actually switched in Latias to one of my U-turns from Landers early game. Because again, that thing was always... Again, it's not a heavy hitter, but it's a big threat because it invites Magnezone to get rid of its only switch-in, as in only Landers to switch-in, Skarmory, and then Pinsir's going to eat. So I switch out of there. I go back into my Landers T here because again, we've kept the HP healthy. I've not switched him into anything besides Drill. He even Iron Heads again here because he's like, this is it. This is the only play I have. But I U-turn out of there. I bring in Pinsir. I CC. That's sort of a 50-50. Yeah, that was a 50-50. So yeah, we kill him off. Get rid of that. In comes Skarm. We just CC. Rowan's gets the sack. Kill him off the end. So even though Landers T did not look like a problem, I thought ahead to where Landers T, I was thinking ahead in the game that these 3, pretty much Mag, Pinsir, and Landers T, would be the most important ones. ABR played this game great. I think I played pretty well. Ended up winning and that kind of thing. It was just a well-played game on both sides of the battle. And we were both looking ahead as to what we could do to win. In ABR's mind, he was always like, I just have to play around Magnezone. That's what he was always looking ahead to. If I make this play, I could lose to Magnezone, blah, blah, blah. So there were a lot of 50-50s and that kind of thing. I hope this replay kind of showed, I guess, what it has to do with the the whole looking ahead. I don't know if this is the perfect example, but I think the other examples were good. But anyway, okay, so I'm actually coming back to this video like 3 days later. I've actually realized when I was about to render this that I actually only put up 4 tips and it's supposed to be 5. And you know, Lord Poke Game, you know, he gave me some quick advice. He said you got to talk about Pokemon as a game of numbers, and that's very, very true, and something that needs to be talked about, even though everybody like hates talking like this. Pokemon is a game of numbers, and hacks exists, and luck exists, and sometimes should your team be absolutely garbage to where you have an unwinnable matchup, because I am of the firm opinion that if you have an unwinnable matchup in ORAS, your team is probably bad. That does not count for ladder when I use fun stuff and they get 6-0 by stall, okay? Okay, this is more tournament geared, I suppose, because like you can make a team on ladder and do well with it and still be 6-0 by certain playstyles, because the ladder actually encompasses everything. But in tournament, if you're 6-0 by common styles such as stall and hyper offense and that kind of thing, your team is just poor. If you have no countermeasure to play against it, your team is poor. But anyway, to break what I'm down, like to break down what I'm saying, if you're in a certain situation where you cannot break the team, like your opponent's defensive core is too good, you have no way to play around his threats, you have to just play the numbers game. You have to hacks. Like at a certain point, like if your actual win condition, like you thought of everything and your win condition is literally burn his Amoonguss with Keldeo, you double that Keldeo as many times as you can and you just spam Scald and you just burn that Keldeo. And the only way you can win is to just crit your move. Like you have to put yourself in your position to do that. If the only way you can win is to Iron Head flinch down his like Zapdos with your Jirachi, you bring it, you have to go for that. Like at a certain time, like if you have like messed up in your game, or if it's just some, like I said, it's just really, really hard to win, this is the only way you can win, you have to play the numbers game. That's basically what it is. And you have to come to terms with that, because like eventually it will come down to hacks if your matchup is that bad. But yeah, Pokemon is a numbers game. Like I guess at a certain point, like if it gets that bad, you have to hacks. But it should never have to come to that, unless again your matchup is that horrendous or you misplayed to put yourself in that position. You should never like have to like you should never go into the game with the mentality that okay, I'm just gonna crit his Clefable and then I'll win the game. Like no, that's definitely not a game plan. But again, if it ever comes down to like something like that, again, Pokemon, game of numbers, and like at a certain time you just have to go for it, and more likely than not you'll get rewarded because this is Pokemon. So yep, hope you guys enjoyed. That should be the end of the video for real now. Later. Oh, hold on. Follow me on Twitter, all right? Go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I'm always active on there because people always hit me up in comments, and like people are still using YouTube messages in 2016. I don't know why. People even hit up my business email with personal emails, which like don't do that. But if you want to like hit me up, like I'm pretty active on Twitter. I always post stuff about YouTube, etc., etc. I'm like pretty active on there and that kind of thing. So hit me up there, and other than that, later guys, peace.